fine. There are no questions. So in that case, let's thank the RNA again. Zahid, are you there?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Please put on share your screen. Yeah. So our next speaker is Zahid, and he will be talking on crossing symmetric dispersion relations in quantum field theories and conformal field theories. And so, Zahid, please.
Yes.
You will have to. I will remind you after 20 minutes. You have to wrap up in 25 minutes. Then there will be 5 minutes discussion.
Okay, thank you. Thank you everyone for being here, and thank you the organizers. So I'll be talking about crossing symmetric dispersion relations in quantum field theories and conformal field theories. So this talk is based on these three works with Anindo, Rajesh, and Parthiv. So now, so dispersion relations are basically non-perturbative representation of scattering amplitude. So in order to write down a dispersion relations, people usually fix one of the Mandel-Stein invariants, and then usually people fix T and then write a complex integral in the S variables. So in our examples, we will consider 2 to 2 scattering of identical particles. But drawback of writing a fixed T dispersion relation or fixed S dispersion relation is that crossing symmetry will be missing in one of the channels. But you know, from the Feynman diagrams, and we know that Feynman diagrams have inbuilt crossing symmetry. For example, if you consider 2-2-5 theory. And so why we'll ask the question that why should not we start with a non-perturbative representation that is crossing symmetry itself. So yet in last 50 years, people have been more focusing on this fixed dispersion relations. A crossing symmetric version of the dispersion relations first written down by Aversion and Curie. When you got this paper, when you first saw this paper, it had only 9 or 10 citations, even though it is dated back to 1972. Now, you know, so in our talk, most of the cases will be seeing this kind of expansion. So let's see. So amplitude, the 4.22 scattering amplitudes is fully crossing symmetric. So it can be expanded in powers of crossing symmetric variables, this x and y. X is the crossing symmetric quadratic Mandel-Stein invariants, and y is the cubic combination of the Mandel-Stein invariants. And this WPQ are the Wilson coefficients. So this Wilson coefficient actually appears in the low energy expansion of the Lagrangian. So this WPQ actually appears in front of the higher dimensional operators. So let's here is the outline of my talk. So first, I'll say how to write down a dispersion relations, which will be crossing symmetric. Then we'll write down an inversion formula for the Wilson coefficients, and we'll write down some rules. And from the inversion formula of the Wilson coefficients, we'll derive some positivity bounds, positivity inequalities for the Wilson coefficients. From there, we'll bound the effective field theories. And after that, we'll move to the geometric function theory of the amplitude. So we'll ask the question that these Wilson coefficients are two-sided bounded. So why this two-sided bounds exist? Which properties of the amplitude actually give rise to this two-sided bounds on the Wilson coefficients? So we'll see that this emerges as a consequence of geometric function theory. Now, after that, we'll see that this crossing symmetric block expansion, crossing symmetric dispersion relation gives us a very rigorous derivation of the crossing symmetric block expansion or written block expansion of the Polyakov-Mellin bootstrap. So let's begin. So to write down a crossing symmetric dispersion relation, one have to parameterize the Mandel-Stein invariance, the S and T, in terms of the parameters Z and A. So this parameterization is given by this formula. So this red box. So this S are the shifted Mandel, SI are the SK are the shifted Mandel-Stein invariants. So S1 is basically S minus mu by 3, and S2, S3 are basically shifted Mandel-Stein variables by mu by 3, where mu is 4m square. And this A and Z are the crossing symmetric variables, and Zk is the cube roots of unity. and A is given by this formula. So quadratic combination of the Mendelssohn variables and divided by cubic. Now, using this parameterization, if you try to recognize the image of the physical cars, then it turns out that this physical image of the physical cars actually maps to this unit circle in the complex jet plane. So, in order to write down a crossing symmetric dispersion relation, we can fix the A and write a complex integral in the Z variables. And after that, you can transform that dispersion relation in terms of Mendel-Stem invariance. And the form of the dispersion relation look like this. So this alpha naught is the subtraction constant, and this A is the imaginary part of the amplitude or absorptive part of the amplitude. And this H is the kernel of the integration, and S1 prime is the integration variable. And you know that second argument of the imaginary part of the amplitude is actually given by this formula, and this S2 plus is basically a function of S1 prime, which is the integration variable, and the A is given by this formula. So A is fully crossing symmetric. So this shows that this representation is fully crossing symmetric. And this is a Regge bounded in all three channels. Now, from the dispersion relation, if we put the partial wave expansion of the SNL discontinuity, this is basically look like this, and we can get a block expansion of the amplitude, which is fully crossing symmetric as well as Regge bounded. So, but the point is that this block expansion has some non-local terms. In the next slide, we'll see what are these non-local terms. But one have to remove these non-local terms to make the amplitude local and fully crossing symmetric and Regge bounded in all three channels. And this is so if you from this Dyson block, from this expansion, from this Dyson block, if you remove these non-local terms, then you get a Feynman block expansion. Now, as we have seen earlier, that completely crossing symmetric amplitude has expansion in powers of x and y. And from the dispersion relation and from the Dyson block expansion, you can write down a inversion formula for this Wilson coefficients WTQ. And inversion formula look like this. So now you can see that for this inversion formula, if you put m greater than n, so this first argument of this W becomes negative. So, but from this integral expression, it's not clear that it will be negative by trivial. So this will put a very non-trivial constraints on this partial coefficients. These are basically called the null constraints. And they put very non-trivial constraints on the partial coefficients. Now, from the inversion formula, from the positivity of the Gegenvar polynomial, and also using the unitarity, that means the positivity of the partial coefficients, one can derive this inequality. So these chi's are basically some known functions. These are given by this. These are very simple functions. And let's see how important this inequality is. So in the case of effective field theory, people usually know some low energy expansion of the amplitude, some low energy values of the amplitude, or the low energy Lagrangian. So from there you can compute some low W's. So for example, if you are given W10 and W01, which are the coefficient of Ax and Y, so then we ask the question that if such terms are given, let's say we consider an example as a 4-dilaton and closed superstring T amplitude with a subtracted out massless pole contribution. So let's say that for this amplitude, we are only given this first two terms, W10 and W01. So we ask now that why the first massive string pole should occur. So now if you plug this value in this inequality, you'll see that the first massive string pole should occur below 1.07. And if you consider higher Wilson coefficients, you'll see that first massive string pole that value will converge to 1. So this inequality basically puts very non-trivial constraints on the Wilson coefficient. So Now, from the null constraints, one can actually bounce the cross section as well. So this cross section formula for this cross section is given by this. We truncate the spin sum up to L max, and these are the bounds. So this blue line is the L max equals to 36, yellow line is L max equals to 46, and green line is L max equals to 60. So you can see that this is converging. And this black dotted line is the Fawcett bound. So this high energy Fawcett bound. And our bound actually numerical Fawcett bound, but it valid for all energies. You can see that pion bootstrap. So these red regions are the pion bootstrap values of the cross sections, some pion bootstrap amplitudes. And you can see that this cross section actually lies far below the bounds that we have obtained. So now let's see how geometric function theory and amplitude are related. So now we have seen earlier that the amplitude has a crossing symmetric expansion in powers of x and y, and our ax is the quadratic crossing symmetric combination of the Mandel-Stam invariants, and y is the cubic combinations. So these w's are the Wilson coefficients. They sit in front of the higher order, higher dimensional operators. And this works by these guys. They have shown that that Wilson coefficients are basically two-sided bounded. So this ratio of WPQ by W10, these are basically bounded from above and below. And this N1, N2 are order 1 numbers. So now we ask the question that why this kind of bound should exist. So which properties of the amplitude actually responsible for this kind of bounds? So we answer this question from this famous formula conjectured by Beverbeck and then later proved by de Bruijns. Now let's see what is this Beverbeck conjecture is. So Beverbeck conjecture actually tells us that how fast a Taylor coefficient of a holomorphic univalent function can grow. So let's say f of z is a univalent function and it has a Taylor expansion of this kind. And coefficient of z is, we have put this to be 1, and this other Taylor coefficients bp. So Beverbeck conjecture tells us that this bn or absolute values of this bn should be bounded by n for n greater than equals to 2. And if a function is univalent, then it shows that the absolute value of the function itself is two-sided bounded. So an univalent function is a function on a domain if it is a holomorphic and one-to-one. So now let's see how. Okay, so now as we have seen that earlier, that amplitude has a fully crossing symmetric expansion in powers of x and y, and this w's are the Wilson coefficients. Now using our parameterization of Mandel-Stam invariants in terms of z and a, we can write down the formula for x and y. So they are basically given by these formulas, and a is given by x and y, x by y, y by x, and z tilde is basically z cube. That z cube that appeared in our parameterization of s1, s2, s3 in terms of z and a. So and now we can now our amplitude is function of z tilde and a. Now we can expand this amplitude around z tilde equals to 0. And the expansion is look like this, and this alpha n a to the power 2n is basically related to the Wilson coefficients, and the formula is given by this. Now now let's see how this is related to the quantum field theories. So so this is the crossing symmetric dispersion relation we have seen earlier. So this A is the
You have 5 more minutes to wrap up.
Yeah. So this A is the channel discontinuity, H is the kernel. One can show that the H is basically a univalent function from this information, and from the unitarity, basically one can show that the coefficients, this alpha n's by alpha 1 is basically two-sided bound. Alpha 1 are basically ratio of this absolute value of that this guys is basically bounded by n for n greater than equals to 1. And also one can show that amplitude also bounded from above and below. And for a small a, from the argument of unitarity, one can show that this combination is also univalent. This amplitude is also univalent. Now from n equals to 2 conditions, we get that from this Beverbeck n equals to 2 conditions, we get that this ratio W01 by W10 is basically bounded by these regions. So you remember that these are the first two expansion coefficients, and these are the bounds. So these dashed lines are the bounds, and this all the dot are the values from the S matrices, that is obtained from S matrix bootstrap. These values actually, you can see that they are actually satisfy the bounds. So there's a work by Anindya Prasad. Prasad shows that the amplitudes are typically real functions, and they established a more tighter bounds on the Wilson coefficients from the theory of typically real invariant functions. So this is the lower bounds, and this is the upper bounds, and you can see the first row is the first column is the from the typically real invariant function, and this one is HDPP results. And you can see that some of the values are basically stronger than the SDPP results. And from these bounds, from the Weber conjecture, one can show that this theory space is bounded, and this this WPQs can't grow orbitally. So you remember that here they're computing WPQ by W10. So they're choosing the normalization that W10 is basically 1. So in this recent work, we have also shown that this fascinating corresponding between this geometric function theory and scattering amplitudes basically holds for even ON global symmetry using fully crossing symmetric dispersion relations. So we derived two-sided bounds on the Taylor coefficients around crossing symmetric point, and we see that this CPQ are two-sided bounds. So here is some bounds. And from here, we also shown that this theory space can be arbitrary. So this CPQ are bounded, and various these dots are various S matrices amplitude that one got from S matrix bootstrap. They actually satisfy these bounds. So now. We'll see how we'll see our application of this dispersion relations in the context of conformal field theories in Minimal space. So one of the main object of interest is the calculation of the critical exponents. So one of the way to calculate the critical exponents is the conformal bootstrap, and fully crossing symmetric bootstrap seems to be more elegant and promising way to determine the critical exponents. So this fully crossing symmetric approach was first proposed by Polyakov in 1974, and then this was further developed in Minimal space by Gopakumar, Kobiraj, Sen, and Sinha. This approach currently lacks a non-perturbative derivation for d greater than or equals to 2. So crossing symmetric dispersion relation actually provides a rigorous derivation of this fully crossing symmetric bootstrap approach. So now here is the convention. So 4-point correlation function has a Mellin amplitude of this kind. So this Mellin amplitude, this M is the Mellin amplitude, and these gamma factors we have factored out for convenience. We'll write down a dispersion relation for this Mellin amplitudes. And this Mellin amplitude has a partial wave expansion, and from the partial wave expansion, one can write down the channel discontinuity, and one can plug this channel discontinuity in the crossing symmetric dispersion relation, and one gets the fully crossing symmetric and Regge bounded block expansion of the amplitude. This is called this we call the Polyakov block. This is fully crossing symmetric and Regge bounded. Now, as we have seen that the Polyakov block has a non-local terms for this WPQ, Wn minus m comma m for m greater than n. So these are basically non-local terms. One have to remove this non-local terms from the Polyakov block. If we remove this non-local terms from the Polyakov block, you get a expansion of this kind. So for these terms are the S plus ST and U channel Witten diagrams, and these are basically contact terms. So this is we call the Witten block expansion. This is fully crossing symmetric, local, and Regge bounded in all three channels. Now, in order to put constraints on the safety spectrum, these are the conditions that you have to apply. So one of them, first of them is the Polyakov conditions. So the amplitude should vanish at S1 equals to delta 5A3 plus P for any S2, and P is integer. And also amplitude, this should have satisfied these null constraints. And this puts a very non-trivial constraint on the safety spectrum. Now, it can be shown that from the fixed the sum rules that one get from the fixed dispersion sum rules, yeah, those are got by these peoples and can be recovered from this Polyakov conditions and the null constraints. So we'll see. So in the right hand side, left hand side, you can see this fixed dispersive sum rules, and the right hand side, these are the crossing symmetric dispersive sum rules. We can Taylor expand these guys around S2 equals to 0. And the Taylor coefficients, small omega r and capital omega r, they are basically related by null constraints. So basically it says that fixed dispersive sum rules equals to crossing symmetric dispersive sum rules plus combinations of null constraints.
Right, please summarize.
Yes, here is the summary of our results. So we derive the inversion formula and sum rules. We derive positivity bounds, that positivity conditions that constrain the effective field theories. And we have shown that the two-sided bounds on the Wilson coefficients emerges as a consequence of geometric function theory of the amplitudes. And we give a rigorous derivation of the crossing symmetric block expansion or Polyakov block, Witten block expansion of the Polyakov-Milne bootstrap. So here are some future directions, and so these formalisms can be extended to externally spinning particles. So there is ongoing work by Shubham, Kaushik, Parthiv, Prasad, and Anindhu. And in the discussion sessions, there will be further discussions on the issues related to this axiomatic dispersion relation by Gyan Maharana. So if you are interested, then be present there. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Guy, for very extensive and interesting talk. Are there questions? Very short question because we are. Okay, Alok has raised a question. Alok, go ahead.
Hi, yeah, just a small question. So this crossing symmetric dispersion relation, I mean, sorry, I missed. What are the assumptions in the sense that in the usual fixed dispersion relation, we need the polynomial boundedness and the analyticity, right? In S
Yes,
for
yes,
fixed.
yes.
So is that enough to derive this? Or
yes, that is enough. That is enough.
I see. But because in that case, if you look at nuclear scattering, like we know that you won't have crossing symmetry, right? I mean, the things like Pomerachuk theorem will be violated for some. I mean, the dispersion relations are not valid for certain processes, right? The fixed dispersion relations.
Yeah. So assumptions that here goes is that basically it's a polynomial bounded and it's crossing symmetric. That's all.
Crossing symmetric. I see.
Yeah, that's all. Yeah, you don't need anything.
And is that equivalent to? Sorry, but is that equivalent to the, analyticity in S for fixed T and the analyticity in T for physical S? Is that same or is it more than?
No, this is actually the same. The same thing.
Okay. Thanks.
You are just parameterizing the S and T in terms of Z and A. That's all.
I see. Okay. And in the older days, people used to say that for complex S and T, behavior of the amplitude was not clearly known, right? It was only known for, and I mean, you keep one thing physical and so that's why.
Yeah. So this parameterization actually these are basically the same thing as that you consider in the fixed dispersion.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Are there any more questions? Well, if not, no, sorry, Siraj, please go ahead.
Hi. Thanks for the very nice talk. When you use these your dispersion relations to constrain Wilson coefficients,
yes.
Do you get new relations that you would not have got if you were using just the ordinary dispersion relations, or is it basically a matter of convenience that makes it easier to use these?
So yeah, these kind of bounds that you can. So these are basically this Biberbeck-Kander structure. This amplitude is basically a typically real invariant function. This structure actually doesn't emerge from the fixed dispersion relation. You can't show that. So as far as we know, but this kind of bounds actually exist. So one can show that from the fixed dispersion relation, you can show this kind of bounds. But from here, this typically real invariant function you actually get. So those calculations are basically numerical, and our bounds are basically more tighter than those bounds.
So I didn't understand. Is it a matter of convenience? I mean, is it the same information is there in both, or there's more information here? It's just that it's easier to use these relations, or there's more information?
No, so information is the same. Same information is there. Yeah.
And right at the beginning, you said something was not visible in that. I missed your word. What did you?
So yeah, this typical, so this amplitude. So if you write a crossing symmetric dispersion relation,
Yes.
from there you can easily show that this amplitude is for certain range of A. This amplitude as a function of Z is a typically real function.
No, I think he's asking something different. He's asking that in the fixed T dispersion relation, crossing symmetry wasn't manifest. So I think that's what he is asking you.
Oh, I see. So yeah.
Is that what you're asking, Shiraj?
No, so it's not a very clear question, Anindya. I was asking whether there was something, some structural feature that comes out here that you could not see from that other thing easily, or some, yeah.
Yeah. So the fact that you have crossing symmetric partial waves, the partial waves that we have in the fixed T dispersion relations are not crossing symmetric. So here you have the structure that you have some exchanges and contact diagrams at each order in the partial wave expansion.
Right. Okay, thank you. One quick other question. To get your bounds, you assumed the absence of cuts. Is this right?
No.
No. The thing that he has described is actually for the massive pions, or where there are cuts from s equal to 4m squared to infinity.
I see. And how did you deal with those? How did you deal with those cuts?
Yeah. So he had a picture. So go back to that picture where the z plane, the cuts are there. So
So yeah. So we basically write down a complex integral interior to this. So this from this parameterization, you can see that physical curves actually map to this circle, and we write down a complex integral inside and outside this circle, and make them go towards the circle, unit circle.
yeah, that's how you pick up the absorptive part instead of the.
Yeah, that's how
Does
you
the
get this.
cut start only at much higher energies than the process you're interested in?
In the thing that he has described, yes, because he's describing pion scattering. So pion scattering, the lower limit of the integral starts from the lower limit of the cut. But there are two S-channel cuts, one on the right and one on the left. They don't join up. So, okay. But if we were describing effective field theory or say weakly coupled gravity, then the cuts would join up, and then you would actually start your dispersive integral at some very higher energy scales, like what you have in mind.
Okay. So, I'll ask more in the discussion section. Okay, thank you.
Great, thanks.
Any more questions in one heads? Okay, if not, let's thank Jahid again and for this interesting and extensive talk. I will thank all the speakers of this session.